You know, chipping doesn't have to be that hard. In these next 3 videos, I'm going to share with you some of the real secrets to making chipping easy. People have told me time and time again this has helped them tremendously on their short game, and I can't wait to share it with you. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, the bunker shots. These can be absolute misery for some players. I see a lot of players come to me for in-person lessons over the years that really struggle just getting out of the bunker and hitting it sort of close to the hole, or they're happy just to get out at all. Well, there's a couple of really big mistakes. I guarantee you, if you're struggling to get out of the bunker, I will bet a large amount of money that you're doing one or maybe both of these things. I'm gonna go over it today, and I have a really simple solution. So not only will you get out of the bunker, but you're gonna be able to hit it close to the hole, feel aggressive, swing very hard, and not feel like you're just guiding the ball. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first piece is all about swing speed. Whenever I'm hitting a bunker shot, it's actually a really full swing. I'm hitting this shot pretty hard. Now, what I did to test this out is I took my GC quad, and what it is, it has 4 high-speed cameras that go 10,000 frames a second, and it tells me how fast my club is moving, all kinds of different parameters about the ball. And what I did is I hit a variety of bunker shots. I tried to keep them somewhere between 15, 20 yards from the green, and I looked at how fast my club head was moving. What I found is for those kind of mid-range 15, 20-yard bunker shots, so from where I'm at to where my ball lands is about 15 yards. I was swinging about 65 to 75 miles an hour. That's pretty daggone fast. Now, players that I see that are struggling to hit out of the bunker and to be very consistent with it, when I made swings that looked about what I usually see when I'm giving in-person lessons to those types of players, I was only swinging like 30 or 35 miles per hour. So a huge difference in the swing speed. Now, why does that matter? What does it matter how fast I swing? Well, if you can imagine, if I'm setting up this ball and I have a very aggressive swing, let's go ahead and do one of my 60 to 75 mile an hour swings here. I got a huge margin for error. I flew that ball all the way up. Oh, I almost made the shot. Flew that ball all the way to the hole, really smack that sand. And the thing is, my face is wide open and I'm hitting a lot of sand and my club's just going right on through it. Now, when I'm swinging half that speed, if I make that exact same shot and I take out a lot of sand behind the ball or I open the face quite a bit, let me go ahead and try to swing one about half that speed this time. I barely got out of the bunker, cleared the lip by a foot or two, and I'm nowhere near the green. So what do I start to do? Well, a couple things could happen. One of the most common things that I see happen when I'm doing this is players will start to close that face a little bit. So now instead of having that face wide open, they tried it like that. The ball barely gets out of the bunker. It stays in the bunker because they're not swinging fast enough. So what they do is they start to close that face a little bit. Now here's what happens when you close the face. If we're looking at the bottom of this club, there's a flange or a piece of metal that's sticking down. This kind of acts like a rudder. So as that club starts to go into the sand, this catches the sand, helps it slide through the sand and slide underneath the golf ball. Now, if I start to close the face and make it more square, I lose that angle. All I have is this really sharp leading edge. And if I hit, let's say 4 or 5 inches behind this golf ball, what happens is that leading edge starts to catch sand and that face digs deeper and deeper down into the sand. So by the time I reach my golf ball, my club is so deep into the sand, it's lost all of its speed, and I'm just gonna barely dribble one in front of me. Let's go ahead and try that out. It's a big swing or 30, 40 mile an hour swing, and the ball went 6 inches. That's because I took all that loft off the club. Now I say, okay, well, that didn't work. I'm swinging slower. I tried de-lofting the club, that didn't work. I have a big divot here, or a big patch that I knocked out of there. So what ends up happening from there is maybe I try to hit a little closer and closer to the ball. I catch it thin and I blade it all the way across the green. So what it feels like is there's no chance. You go a little slower or a little bit more sand, you leave it in the bunker. You get a little bit less sand and that thing shoots way across the green. So the solution to this is to swing much, much faster, much firmer. To give you a frame of reference, I also went out and tested with my lob wedge. You can use a sand wedge or lob wedge from the bunker. But I went back to the fairway and I said, you know, what is that 60 to 75 mile per hour? What does that equate to in distance if I'm hitting a normal wedge? And what I found is it's about a 1-to-1 ratio. So if I take my lob wedge and I swing it 70 miles an hour with a normal shot, that ball is going to go about 70 yards. So if you normally hit your sand wedge 60 to 75 yards or your lob wedge 60 to 75 yards, you're essentially making an absolute full swing when hitting a proper bunker shot. So that's the first key. We have to swing aggressive. If we swing aggressive, Now we can start to open the face, which allows the flange to get down. It allows it to glide through the sand, makes it much easier. And it also allows us to hit much more behind the ball, take out a big swipe of sand and get it up on the green. Now the second piece of this one I'm going to talk about is how far behind the ball should I get? And I was actually reading a comment on Facebook recently with a player talking about getting really close to it. And he thought that the pros were hitting just right at the ball. Whenever you hit behind the ball, it's going to leave it in the bunker. So, you know, they're assuming that you want to hit within 1 or 2 inches of this golf ball. And I also put that to the test. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like. All right, so what we can do is we can draw a line in the sand. I'm going to try to line this up with my hole the best I can here. But I can draw this line in the sand. Hopefully you guys can see that on camera. So I'll try to make it a little bit thicker. And I'm going to put my golf ball just basically right on the front edge of that. So that'll just be kind of a normal lie on a golf ball. So if I hit and the first bit of sand I move is on that line, I know I'm pretty much hitting the golf ball on the sand at the same time. As I get farther behind that line, let's actually go ahead and instead of using a tee, I'm going to make this a little bit deeper so we can see this on camera better. I'll go ahead and use my golf club. So you can see that's really got a kind of a deeper line. I'll smooth that out so it won't affect the shot at all. So this big trough here is basically essentially where I would first hit the golf ball. So if I don't hit any sand behind that line, then I know that I'm basically hitting ball and sand at the same time. So what I did when I tested this is I went ahead and hit some good shots. And let's take a look at this with a good shot first. So I'm going to have this face open, nice aggressive swing. Let's go ahead and pop it right up there on the green. There we go, another good one. Oh, barely missed that one too. And here's what you'll notice. That ball, I'm going to set this ball where that ball used to be. Now there's my ball, and if you look, here's the very first part of the sand that I entered into. So if I'm using my foot, that's a good 6 or 7 inches behind the golf ball. So again, what I've done is I've swung hard enough where I can hit 6 or 7 inches behind the golf ball. I can take out a big swipe of sand. I can have the face wide open, and that thing's going to be pretty consistent. What happens if I start getting closer to that line? So again here, let's put that golf ball there, and let's try to inch it up. You know, instead of being back here 6, 7 inches behind it, I'm going to try to get 3 or 4 inches. And I got to tell you, it makes me nervous just thinking about doing this. If I'm getting within 3 or 4 inches, this ball is very likely going to just shoot right over the green. And that's exactly what it did. I caught the ball clean, and I didn't catch all that much sand. It didn't feel like I caught that much sand. But if you look at that again, here if I put my ball on the front of where that was and I look at where my club entered, now we move that to about 3 or 4 inches behind the golf ball. Now the 2 inches behind the golf ball, which is kind of floating around as that might be a good idea, that thing is going to sail 50 yards over the green. There's a road probably 50 yards past this hole. I wouldn't be surprised if I do that. I might hit it on the road. Let's go ahead and try it out. I don't know if it's going to make it to the road or not. Almost to the road. And that one is exactly about 1 inch behind the golf ball. So again, here's my golf ball. And then there was the very first place that I entered the sand, about 1 inch behind it. So if you're making the proper swing, if you're swinging fast enough to hit great quality bunker shots and you have the face open, you're going to skull the heck out of these things. And again, here's the reason. As I open this face, that brings the leading edge higher up off the ground or off my finger, again, because there's this flange here. So I have to hit well behind the ball and let the club slide under the ball. If I hit at the ball and this leading edge is sticking up, that thing is going to fly way over the green. So if you want to be consistent, you got to follow those rules. All right, so what do we need to do now? Let's go ahead and wrap this up. What's something we can take to the course? We've talked about a lot of information. Here's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to play this ball a little bit on the front foot. I'm going to open my stance a little bit. That way it's just a little easier to come through the shot. I'm going to open my face wide open. If I put it toward the camera, this leading edge is going to be about 30, maybe even 40 degrees open, and then I'm going to re-grip the club. Now, as I set that down to the ground, that club is essentially wide open. I mean, it is facing the sky. Now, for those of you that hit your sand wedge or your lob wedge around that 60 to 75 yard range, it's a full swing. You're swinging as hard as you can, just like you're hitting a full sand wedge from the fairway. The only reason it's going slower is because A, the sand's going to slow it down, and B, my face is wide open. So if I swing, let's say I swing 80 miles an hour, because the face is open and the sand slows it down, it maybe goes 3-4 feet longer. If I swing 60 miles an hour, it goes 6-7 feet shorter. It's going to be really consistent. So ball forward, feet a little open. I'm going to flare out this front foot. I'm gonna bend my left leg and get a lot of the weight on my front foot. That face is open, and then finally here, I'm gonna thump the sand, and if I look down, if I mark where my ball is, if I look down, I should be about 6 or 7 inches behind where my golf ball was. Let's give it a whirl. All right, another good bunker shot. I'll definitely take that one. And let's really get this bunker wet. So I'm not playing around here. This is a true bunker, wet bunker. I'm gonna let this soak in for a second. I'll be right back. You ever hit out of the really soft lies and you swing hard and the ball just barely gets up on the green with those bunker shots? Or maybe you get into a hard pan lie and the ball just shoots 30 feet over the green. How do we know how to hit out of both soft and hard lies when we're in the bunker? That's exactly what I'm gonna go over in this video. There's a couple secrets to this, and once you know those, it makes it really easy to get out of any lie. Let's go ahead and get started, knock some of these bunker shots really close. All right, so first let's talk about, a nice normal lie or a fluffy lie. There's plenty of sand, the ball's sitting nicely. We can really go ahead and hit this one hard. Now with this type of a shot, you wanna make sure that you have the face really open. And what this does is it exposes the flange on the bottom of the club. So there's this big chunk of metal that's sticking down into the sand, kind of acting like a rudder. And when you open that up, now it's gonna glide through the sand. So your club's gonna come down, it's gonna hit the sand and then slide through it without digging really deep. So if I hit this one here, I'm gonna have the face wide open. Number two, I wanna go ahead and get my feet fairly wide and really kind of feel like I'm digging in with my feet. This is a big key because it's gonna help me to feel how soft the sand is. If my feet sink way down in, I know I'm gonna have to swing really, really hard. If my feet sink in a little bit, kind of normal sand like this, I know I'm still gonna have to swing pretty firm, but not quite as hard as I would on, say, this 60-foot shot with really, really soft sand. As a rule of thumb, you probably need to swing at least twice as fast as you think you do. I took a radar, actually a GC quad, it has a high-speed cameras that'll read how fast the club is moving. I found that basically the swing speed you would use for an absolutely full sand wedge or lob wedge out of the fairway is the exact same swing speed that you would use in a greenside bunker. So if I'm gonna hit this shot 60 feet, I'm gonna hit it just as though I'm in the fairway and I'm hitting a full strength shot. Really go after it really hard, even more aggressive than you would on a normal shot. So face open, that exposes the flange, that keeps it from digging. Digging my feet to feel how soft the sand is. If it's a little soft, I'm gonna absolutely take a rip at this thing as hard as I can swing. Number three, I'm gonna play the ball slightly up in my stance, and I'm gonna keep my weight on my front foot pretty much the entire time. Now from here, I'm gonna feel like my club goes vertical. I don't wanna feel like I'm swinging around my body in the sand. I wanna swing a little more vertical, and I wanna pop that club down into the sand, really hit at it aggressively. Now if I can do that, I should be able to draw a line 4 to 6 inches behind this golf ball, and my club should enter the sand somewhere back around that line. So here, let me go ahead and go through that. Open up, big swing, wide feet, and I'm really gonna thump this sand. There we go, hit a nice one there. So I really feel like I had to swing super hard to get it pretty close on this 60-foot shot. A little short of what I would have wanted to have happen. I should have swung just a little bit harder than that. It's that simple. But that's an acceptable result from being farther away. Typically when you get more than 20 or 30 feet out on a bunker shot, they get pretty tricky because I have to really swing so hard to get it there. Now, another thing that I find really messes people up with this, they just don't open the face enough because you're not used to swinging that hard. What I'll see most players do when they get in the bunker is they'll square up this face. Then if I start to swing easier, so let's say I square this face up, I'm gonna do this the wrong way. If I swing hard like I should swing in a bunker shot, let's see where this one goes. That shoots way over the green. That one flew completely over the green. So if you have that square face, you instinctively know, well, I can't really swing very hard. Let me take something off of it. Well, with that square face, when I start taking something off of it, it gets really, really dicey. Notice how with this divot, how much it dug down into the sand. That's because I took away that bounce on the bottom. Square face, that leading edge is really sharp, and now it's gonna start to dig. So if I try to swing a little bit softer here with that square face, now I'll leave it in the bunker because I tried to swing softer. The first one sailed over the green. The second one I made it a little softer. The club dug in the sand, and I just didn't get to the golf ball, it didn't go anywhere. So you really have to, and this is something that I see basically everybody doing. You're not opening the face enough, but the reason you're not opening the face enough, you're just not swinging anywhere near hard enough. I want that face wide open, and I want you to swing at this ball as hard as you can. Don't worry about hitting the golf ball, just thump the club into the sand behind the golf ball. If I do that really hard, it's gonna be completely fine. That felt like a full wedge shot to me, and I only hit it about 60 feet or so. So really be aggressive with it. Now let's talk about when you have those firm lies. Let me go ahead and grab this big Home Depot bucket of water here, and let's really get this bunker wet. So I'm not playing around here. This is a true bunker, wet bunker. I'm gonna let this soak in for a second. I'll be right back. All right, so we got this soaking wet bunker. This is really gonna compact the sand. Usually after a rain, the bunkers are gonna get pretty hard. So you wanna adjust your technique here a little bit. When I normally play a shot, like I talked about, let's say this is a square face, I'm gonna open that face up probably a good 45 degrees, that leading edge of the club 45 degrees open. When I set that down on the ground, that's gonna look like it's just facing straight up to the sky. You look at any PGA Tour event, that's what you're gonna see as far as the face, what it looks like. Now when this bunker gets harder, I'm gonna tend to skip if I do that. This big flange that sticks out of the bottom, if it's really pronounced like this, if I hit 4 to 6 inches behind the ball when the bunker's soft, it's gonna tend to skip and not dig, and I could thin that golf ball. So what I'm gonna do is, instead of it being about 45 degrees open with the face, I'm only gonna be about 30 degrees open with the face. And instead of hitting somewhere in that 4 to 6 inches behind, now I wanna hit 2 to 4 inches behind the golf ball. So that's not where I'm aiming, but that's when my club very first comes into contact with the sand. I want to feel like I'm aiming in a spot right behind the golf ball, and especially with this firmer, harder sand, I want to feel like I hit down more. That way I can penetrate into the sand, and what I don't want to have happen, the worst thing that could happen, is if I don't get down enough, I don't thump the sand hard enough, and it skips off the sand and goes back up into the golf ball. So that's the one that sculls across the green. You get nervous, and then the next one, you make a really timid swing and you leave it in the bunker. Really frustrating. So the keys to harder sand, a little bit less open with the face. I'm gonna aim a little closer to the golf ball, and I need to be ultra aggressive, even more aggressive than I was with my softer sand, in making sure that I hit down. I don't wanna get timid with this. I'm gonna start thinning them and leaving it in the bunker if I do that. I wanna really concentrate on feeling like I'm just gonna slam this club into the ground behind the golf ball. So I really wanna have that downward hit, kind of like that. I really wanna thump the sand with it. So that's exaggerated there. Let me go ahead and show you an actual shot here. So a little less open with the face, aiming a little closer to the ball, and I'm really hitting down more and still being very aggressive. There we go, and that ball came out a little bit hotter because the face wasn't quite as open, but you can see here I really thumped the sand. I want to hit my club into that sand. If you follow those rules, you'll be able to get out of both soft sand and really hard sand. One of the most common complaints that I get when I'm working with players that struggle out of the bunker is they say, you know, I would love to set up with my face open, but I'm just not comfortable doing that. I feel like when I do that, I just can't get anything out of the bunker. I always end up way too short. You know, what do I do? And then they'll come and they'll fight it and they'll set up with their face square, and then they'll blast it way over the green, or they'll leave it short in the bunker. How does any of this make sense? Let me go through and talk to you about exactly what happens and why you cannot, absolutely cannot, keep the face square in the bunker if you want to be a great bunker player. Not one phenomenal bunker player has ever done that. So if you're doing pretty good with the face square, you could be amazing with the face open. You could be one of the best I've ever seen. So let's go through first here. Imagine this face of this wedge. Let's talk about why, if this is the surface level of the bunker, why we don't want to have this face square. It has to be open like this. So whenever I set up to the face and it's square, look at what piece of metal. Imagine this is the surface of the bunker. Imagine this is a pond or a lake, and this is the surface of the water. Well, if I'm swinging down into this water and my face is square, look at what's going to grab that water. What's going to happen to this club? As soon as it breaks the surface level of the water, all that water is going to shoot up the face. Because of the angle of the face, it's going to shoot down into the water. Same thing happens in the sand. Now, I have to be really precise if I'm doing this. If the golf ball is here, if I hit a little too close to that golf ball with a square face and I swing hard enough to get out of this bunker, that ball is going to soar 50, 60 feet over the green. If I hit it just the perfect amount behind it, which if you're using a square face and you're getting good results, is probably what you're doing. You're just timing it up perfect, you get a pretty good result. And if I go a little too far back, now as that club shoots down into the surface of the water or the bunker or the sand, it's gonna eat up all kinds of sand before it ever gets to the ball, and it's just not gonna go out at all. So if I'm a little too close to the ball, let's go ahead and try one out here. I'm gonna set up with a square face. I have a line so we can see where my club's gonna enter relative to where this ball is set up. And I'm gonna go ahead and try to hit about 2 or 3 inches behind this golf ball with the swing speed that I need to hit it out of here. There we go, so that was actually not that bad. Flew over the green, but you can see I actually was fairly precise in where I wanted to hit that. I'm about 3 inches, there's my inner zone, there's where the golf ball was. I'm about 3 inches or so behind the golf ball, and that thing still shot over the green. Now on the second one here, let me go ahead and try to hit a little farther back behind that. Same exact swing, everything's gonna be exactly the same. I'm just gonna go a little farther back and see what happens. There we go, so that time, instead of being the 3 inches behind, I was about 6 inches behind. So I got what most people would recommend to do. Look how much sand I took up. That's because my club face shot down in the sand. The ball didn't go anywhere, barely got out of the bunker, and now I'm gonna have to hit another wedge shot. So whenever I'm hitting these bunker shots with a square face, I've only got about an inch area in there that I can deliver the club to where it's gonna shoot down in the sand, still hit enough ball to get it to go the right distance. It's just impossible to time, there's no way to do it. Now if I open this face, look at what's addressing the surface of the water now. This other piece of metal, this flange on the bottom of the club. Imagine as I'm swinging down into that, that's helping keep this kind of gliding across the surface, not digging in too much. And I can hit 6 inches behind, it just glides. I can hit 2 inches behind, and because the face is so open, it just goes up in the air and it doesn't shoot way over the green. So I can be anywhere back here and do pretty well. If I hit a little too close, it may go too far, but it's not gonna be crazy. So here, let me try to hit a little closer to this golf ball. There we go, I really hit closer to that one. It's still barely off the green, and again, I was 3 inches behind the golf ball. So on that one, maybe not the perfect shot, the perfect result, but I'm still about 20 feet closer than I was with the square face. Now let me go ahead and hit way behind one here, and because that flange is open, it's gonna glide through the sand, and let's see where this one ends up. There we go, so perfect on that one. Just barely past the flag. A little bit farther back. Let me go a little farther back than that. Let me really hit behind it to show you how far behind you can hit and still have a good shot. There you go, great example there. And this is a tough shot I got. I purposely picked a 40, 50 footer. But see there, I'm entering the sand 6 inches behind that golf ball, and because this bottom flange helped it to glide through, I'm still on the green with a pretty decent putt for this type of a bunker shot. So when you have the face square, it digs. Another way to think about this, I think is a really good analogy that I just heard, is imagine this leading edge of the club and the face of the club like water skis. So if I'm skiing along and my skis are kind of pointing up and gliding across the surface of the water, that would be like an open face wedge. Everything just glides right along. But as soon as the front of my skis tip over and catch the water, I'm gonna be eating a face full of water. As soon as my skis penetrate the top surface level of the water, I'm shooting down in there. Same thing's happening with your wedge shot here. As soon as I let that face start to square up at all, it's gonna be really tough. I'm gonna either leave it in the bunker or I'm gonna hit it way, way too long. Now the final thing I wanna leave you with here, the big mistake that players make whenever they do open up the face and they say, okay, I get the idea, but I'm still not getting the result, we have to swing incredibly hard. I have my 60-degree wedge here. You could use a 56, either one of those is fine. But I want to have that face wide open here, and I'm going to swing with the amount of speed I would of just basically a full swing. I'm really going to feel like I put some power into it, and I want to come down and I want to thump that sand. I want to kind of hit down into that sand. I want to feel like I'm really hitting the back of the club, you know, popping that against the sand as I'm swinging down. I'm going to let this flange keep it nice and shallow. Last thing I want to do is barely touch any sand. I want to really thump that sand hard. So finally here, let's go ahead and hit one more. Again, this is a tough bunker shot, 40, 50 feet, one of the toughest in the game. I'm going to open it wide open. I'm going to swing really hard, and I'm going to thump the sand behind the golf ball. There we go. Almost made that one. So the key to bunker shots, two things. Gotta have that face open. Nobody's ever been a great bunker player without a wide open face. You won't see a single guy on the PGA Tour that's face doesn't look like this in the bunker. Number two, you gotta swing hard, way harder than you think. And number three, don't try to pick that ball, thump that sand, hit down into it hard. Let the flange allow that club to glide through the bunker, and you're gonna get out every single time. You're gonna look like a pro out of the sand. All right, so now that we got these greenside bunkers licked, what do we do from here? Well, the purpose of getting up and down from a greenside bunker is basically just to score better. And the next piece of that is really mastering your wedges. I have an awesome bonus video for you. It's gonna talk about how to hit those wedges nice and clean and really score better around the greens from 100 yards and in. I'm gonna play a preview of that video here in a second. Just click the card on your screen or the link down below in the description. You'll get instant access to that video and you'll start knocking those wedges close too. I can't wait to help you out with your wedge game. Let's go ahead and get started. Pitch shot could be anywhere from right by the green all the way back to probably 50 or 60 yards or so. And that's what you're going to want to do when you want to get a little bit more spin and get the ball a little bit more up in the air. We're going to go ahead and let the wrist set a little bit more, have a little bit more club action, get the ball to go a little higher in the air with a little bit more spin. So let me go ahead and describe what is a good pitch shot so that you know what you're really going for. I think we got to start from there, start from contact. So as I make contact, I want to be coming in very shallow to the ground. So I don't want to be taking much of a divot. I don't want to be hitting down into the ground. As the club releases and we have a flat spot where the club travels very level with the ground for 5 or 6 inches on these pitch shots. So when that happens, let me go ahead and exaggerate. As my hand is coming down, my hands are close to the ground. As this club gets closer and closer to the ground, my hands move up. As the club moves down, now you're seeing that I'm having this flat spot.